Hello and welcome to another roundtable discussion. The table is still square, as we always say here. All about WCPW and the Pro Wrestling World Cup. I'm New Adam from What Culture, and I'm joined by WCPW General Manager Plumpy and Executive Vice President of Talent Relations, Head of Talent Relations, man in the know, James Nick Dixon.
Congratulations, by the way, Adam. That is the first time in any of the things that we've done for this where it's been said the words WCPW General Manager Plumpy.
Oh.
We've studiously managed to avoid saying those exact combination of words because of how stupid they sound.
Yes,
but we've that seal has been broken now. Thank you.
I'm glad to be the one to break it. So we're here to talk about WCPW and the Pro Wrestling World Cup. Just a bit of a behind the scenes, all the questions you've wanted to know about WCPW, but we're too afraid to ask. So let's start with the Pro Wrestling World Cup. It's been going amazingly so far. This Friday and Saturday, we've got the American and the rest of the world qualifiers. But just generally, guys, when it comes to the Pro Wrestling World Cup, how did it all begin and how was it first organised? Because it seems like a mammoth task.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it. It seemed way too ambitious. I think it is. It's still definitely, I think, by far and away the most ambitious thing we've done as a channel, as a company, and it's something that I was very, very galled by when it was first suggested, way back in
January. It's been going for a long time. This idea, yeah. I mean, it was daunting, right? Because it was. We need 64 guys. So that's the easy part. Picking names that you want is fine.
Yeah.
But then you've got to make sure the 8 qualifiers are available for the qualifying leg, but also that the 2 winners are available for the finals.
Yep.
Which was a task.
Which aren't on one day as well, of course.
Which are over many days.
And of course, you've got... We're talking about the cream of the independent wrestling scene with this tournament. Like the guys confirmed for the finals already, unbelievably good. And it's getting the cream of the wrestling scene available for 3 days.
Yeah, for one's hard enough.
In August.
Yeah.
August, which happens to be the same month as, say, SummerSlam, and, of course, G1.
And Bowlers the week after, right? So
yeah. It's good fun,
That's one way of describing it.
Here's to next year.
Yeah.
So once you get this idea of, or a concept, I suppose, of the World Cup, what was the sort of next step that you guys had to do?
I mean, I think we didn't really come up with the concept ourselves. It was a collective thing, a couple of people's ideas that we sort of ran with and helped put together. The next step was then finding the talent, finding the dates, because you've got to have venues available. You've got to have, the talent confirmed, and are they already over in the country for like the American guys, or are we bringing them over?
It wasn't even that.
Lots of different things
as well. Like even before that stage, it was what are the legs going to be? Because we knew we wanted to do England, we knew we wanted to do America, Japan and Mexico. Those ones kind of leapt out. But do we want to do Ireland, or do we do 2 legs of rest of the world because there are so many countries? Do we?
It
do
went
Australia,
further than that, didn't it? As well. Do we have pre-qualifiers for like the rest of the world bracket, for example, which we nearly did. So there was a lot. There was a lot to consider, and I think we're all very happy with how it's turned out. I think we're quite proud of the way it's turned out.
Yeah, definitely. And I like some of the legs, which for me seemed like a risky gambit, just because I didn't know the scenes hardly at all, like the Germany leg, the Canada leg. Those have been some of the best shows we've ever made.
Yeah. Canada was something else.
Yeah, really special.
Because obviously with Canada and Germany, we went to those countries for the first time as well, and we didn't know what our audience would be like there, whether they'd react, whether they'd be into our guys, our storylines, things like that. But they were, in a big way. Canada especially, when Martin Kirby comes out and gets this huge reaction in Toronto, it's a strange kind of world, I guess we live in. But
right.
But it really worked well, and there was times where we were going to do America, maybe in America. We considered that as well, and we just realised it was probably more sensible to do it over here. We are based in the UK. For all we have worldwide fans, so let's give the UK fans a treat.
Yeah, for all the the impression we give off there are unlimited funds. Would you rather have the US leg over here but with the best US wrestlers, or would you have it over there but not being able to afford the best talent?
Yeah, because you've got to think the cost of taking our production overseas isn't inconsiderable. So it worked out best to do it this way, and I do think it's better this way. You know, I know there's a lot of ribbing, I guess, for the Mexico leg in Coventry. It's like, yeah, but you know, at the same time, Coventry got
El Ligero.
So, what do you mean?
Oh, good point.
Yeah,
Sorry.
kayfabe, my friend. So yeah, there's been a couple of challenges in that regard, more like mental challenges for us, like hurdles for us to get over. Like, do we think that's going to work or not? And in the end, you just go with it and hope it does, and it seems to have.
And have there been any real stumbling blocks, any real moments where you've had to sort of go away, have a meeting and
when we turned up to a venue to discover that one guy was sick and one guy was off because his wife was having a baby, that was nice. That was that's why the German bracket ended up looking quite different,
Very
to
different,
how it was
yeah.
advertised. We got to the venue, Crazy Sexy Mike was off at the hospital, and Tarkan Aslan was sick.
Mm-hmm.
So creative things had to be done. But like you say, you expect that with any wrestling show. It's by far and away the most volatile.
We're used to it. I mean, I've been around the industry for quite a long time, so I'm not really phased by this kind of thing anymore. And I think
Really
you
long
guys,
time, like 60 years or something like that.
60,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. And you guys have been around it so long now as well. And it's like you've done so much in a year, right?
We're
It's part
we're
of it,
industry
so-
veterans, and
Yes.
I've always said that, even in
Yes, that'll
2015.
go down well.
Yeah.
But you know, we've seen things like this have happened. You know, on other shows before the World Cup, we've had last minute changes and quite major ones sometimes that we've had to deal with on the day. So,
Well, I've myself I've gone from being a fan, obviously, of WCPW and the Pro Wrestling World Cup,
You dirty Mark.
to being on the other side of things, and you know, the speed. I'm always amazed at the speed that things can change, but the way things can get fixed. I mean, as an example, the US qualifier with Cody, obviously.
Oh yeah.
The difficulty of losing Cody, but then being able to bring someone like Keith Lee in as a replacement. I mean, what was that like when the message first came through? Like, we can't get Cody, but we're going to have to adapt. And then, what was the process that you had to go through to get someone like Keith Lee? Because that's no small name there.
Keith Lee was actually. We had the benefit of another promotion, XWA, were using him the following day. So we know them, we've worked with them a little bit before. So we contacted them and said, look, is Keith available the day before? You know, can we fly him in early and, you know, just have him stay an extra day? And turned out we could. So like that one was quite an easy one.
Yeah.
We've had others where it hasn't been quite so easy yet. We've had to replace guys in the past. And I think the quickest turnaround we ever did was from someone pulling out to bringing somebody else
an
in.
hour, wasn't it?
It's like an hour and a half or something.
And that was in like the dead of night.
It was at midnight.
It's Christopher Daniels we brought in at the last moment. Yeah. That
deal was made a day before his flight. His flight was about 15, 16 hours after the deal was done. So it was tight, you know, because you've got to get the flights, you've got to get the visas as well at the last minute, which is pretty tough. You know, you've got to make sure the creative works for it all and that everyone's on board. And so it can be a challenge, but you know, so far, I think we've done a reasonable job of pulling it off. You know,
let's just cross all our fingers.
Well, yeah,
Jesus.
I was going to say we've got the final two qualifiers, obviously, and then the finals coming up at the back end of August, basically.
Yeah.
Is there ever a moment you can just sort of relax and think, right, this is happening now, or will that be the minute the bell rings after the final? Almost, that's almost the only point that you guys can enjoy what you've created.
Yeah, I don't permit myself to feel relaxed about any show we do until it's done, until the final bell. Not even then, just like once we have packed the ring away, and I have a pint in my hand. That is the only time I get to feel like, okay, there is now nothing at risk. And even then, it's not always certain.
No,
because
there's still things on top.
Yeah, like footage we've had misplaced footage from shows. We've had shows, not mentioning any ones because we've actually managed to cover it up pretty well. We've had ones where the rule that it was supposed to govern the match accidentally went out the window during the match, so people had to go back and re-edit the match so that it actually made sense. So you're basically, until it's uploaded onto the channel, really, it's not.
But even then,
not done.
You know, people will point out the
YouTube
holes
might
in
take
it.
it down.
YouTube might take it down. Yeah, so sometimes there'll be issues with it that we've missed because the way we tape things. Sometimes we tape things in the 2 weeks ago, and then we record a promo the following week and slot that in. And it doesn't always, it's not quite Game of Thrones sometimes, it doesn't always flow seamlessly.
No.
But we recognise that and we try and fix those mistakes. But in terms of resting on your laurels, there's just no time. You know, there's always. So we did the Japan show last week, I guess, a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And you think, right, great, we've got that done. That was great. Everyone was here. Everyone was fine. Yeah, all good. But then it's like, well, in 2 weeks we've got these 2 shows back to back. You know, a million guys to get here and, you know, take care of while they're here. So there's no stopping, you know. And even, I don't think a lot of people realize that after the show, it's not the end for us. You know, we've got another hour or two of, you know, you see that set and you see everything looks great, but it's all got to come down, and then we've got to get back up to wherever we've come from. So sometimes by the time we're home, it's 4 or 5 in the morning, and people don't see the less glamorous side, I guess.
I'd say the average show day starts at 9 a.m. and goes through to about 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And that's when everyone else is like back in. That's when everyone else gets home, and they're draining. And in August we have like 3 or 4 back to back, so it's going to be hell on earth. But also, paradoxically, and of course, it's probably going to be one of the culminations of like one of the best things we've done. Like the finals taking place over 3 days. I see there's no match on there that I cannot wait to see. Cannot wait, and that is something to be proud of. And it makes like the fact that on Friday we'll be going down to Manchester, probably about 9 in the morning, getting back at about 3, setting up in Newcastle from about 10, and then working straight through to about 1. So that'll be nice, Yeah.
But you know, we're getting used to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Sometimes those 3 or 4 in a row stints that we do, they kind of, everyone sort of mucks in the atmosphere sometimes good, a little bit better, even because everyone knows that you've got this slog ahead.
Spirit of the Blitz, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And you fire through it, and it's the good fun.
And I want to talk about the finals and the brackets in a little while, but just to pull back, because at the end of the day, this is a WCPW promotion, that the World Cup, to take it right back to just over a year ago from the beginnings of WCPW. I mean, putting on a World Cup sounds a hell of a lot easier than starting a wrestling company. From the ground up, from nothing, basically.
I like, because at least the World Cup is like, we had an extension of kind of like, well, we know how we put on these shows, we sort of know how it's going to look, whereas coming up with a promotion from the ground up, it was a difficult process, and like that's evidenced in the fact that the shows now look incredibly different than how they did in the early days. You can't just conjure up exactly what your promotion's going to look like that. You have to trial and error, and that the first kind of stages of making the promotion were exactly that. It was an incredibly daunting task, trying to work out exactly what WCPW was going to be.
And you have all this, I suppose, like idealism of, we'd like it to look like this, and we'd like to get guys like this.
Oh, you want it to look like WrestleMania,
exactly.
But it's not that easy. It takes time, effort, and a large budget, which it isn't always there for the kind of thing. We're not going to spend £1 million on a set, for example, are we? So, but the problem is, a lot of our audience at first were used to WWE more than indie wrestling at all.
Yeah.
So that's what they were probably expecting, and we didn't deliver that, but I think we've come as close as we can to delivering something comparable on the kind of budget that we're working within.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say in the inception of WCPW, humble beginnings is the best way that I would describe it.
Beginnings is the word I'd use.
Warehouse with a hole in the roof, it was.
Yeah, we
as we love to say.
Ill-advisedly against a green screen. We had one taping that took place at 10 o'clock in the morning. Trying to get fans along for that was a nightmare. Mistakes were made, like all the What Culture personalities were all over the show, because we weren't quite sure, is this going to be a hybrid thing with the YouTube channel? Is it going to be its own thing?
You guys were what sold it in the first place. So this is always the biggest criticism, and for me, I can take an objective look on this more than you can, because you're one of them. You guys being part of it is what brought the audience there in the first place. Otherwise, we're just another random indie promotion that started up from nowhere.
Yeah,
so you guys initially brought people in.
Yeah, I just think that we were like, the fact that the cardboard belt was the inciting plot.
Yeah, but you said this
at the end of the first episode.
Look at the first episode and the breakdown of the numbers on YouTube. What was watched more than anything was that belt being ripped in half.
Oh, well, yeah.
So, I mean, what does that tell you? There are people who want to see that. I can understand, absolutely, wrestling purists hate it. Hate you guys. I get it. I hate most of you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, no,
You still don't quite know what YouTube is, do you?
No, I don't know what it is.
Mr. Dixon.
But, you know, I think it was important to have you guys as part of it. And I still think it is, because I think you are all, well, not all, but I think most of you are very good at the roles that you play on the show. I think your promos in the early shows when you were doing the heel thing were really good. I think you were hanging in there with guys who were great on the mic, like Bischoff, you know, and more than handling it. So
Thank you,
I think you're very critical of yourself.
It's not necessarily like that. I think we did a bad job. It's just I think there was just too much of us.
There was definitely too much.
You only get
I get why.
I think you only get one chance to make a first impression. I think the first run of shows balances were off. I think like now, like because you know, I think it's telling that we pulled back a bit. You know, we like, there's nowhere near as much. You know, Ross and Simon Miller, no, and you know, there's not as much Pacitti these days. Not as much Jack. There's still me, but that's because of my role in kind of the narrative.
Makes sense. Any promotion could book these talents, but the only place that can see you interact with them, for example, is here.
Yes.
And you know, for all you might think otherwise, there are people who do value that side of the programming.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
I do believe that.
I agree on that point. I just think you know, it'd be nice if it's just it is a wrestling promotion at the end of the day, and
So is WWE, but yet the McMahons are all over it.
Sure, that's true.
You know, and
but
the hottest era of WWE, the McMahons were all over it. That's not criticism, really.
Yeah, but it's just like I feel like we readdressed the balance for reasons, and I think ultimately there was a bit of YouTube getting in the way of the wrestling, and I think ultimately if we were going to grow as a promotion, because you know we have our fans. And our fans did watch. But I think the only way to grow as a promotion is to put on the thing that you're chiefly selling, which is the wrestling.
Sure.
Make sure that's
There's a place for everything.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, just like I think you're right. The balance was wrong at first, but I think we've probably got it about right now. I mean, I think anyone who questions the quality of the shows that we put on, we're never going to please them at this stage, because we've put on some of the finest matches in the country, and that's not a knock on the other promotions around, because they're putting on incredible things as well. I'm not saying we're better than them or anything like that. I'm saying we're comparable to them, you know, in terms of the quality of the action. I mean, how can you look at something like Will Ospreay and Drew Galloway that we did this year? One of the greatest matches I've ever seen in person. You know, 2 standing ovations from the crowd, because they didn't know what else to do with themselves. You're like, they were chanting, "This is awesome," and that wasn't enough, because it doesn't matter anymore. And you know, so they had to just stand up and applaud, because they were so enraptured by what they were seeing. It's like, how can you criticize that
Ricochet,
aspect of
Drew
it?
Galloway, we put on and it does feel like sometimes you're fighting uphill with the public perception of WCPW. That is,
I get why.
it is what it is.
We're the Man City of wrestling companies. Like,
I don't understand sports.
you understand sports?
Yeah.
We are, right?
Yes.
Yeah. They bought themselves to the top.
I see.
You know, manufactured being a top team.
Right, okay.
So, which is kind of, I think, the accusation people level at us is, you know, you've come from nothing, and all of a sudden you've got all these names and these big shows.
It's not
and
unfair,
stuff.
you know.
It's not unfair.
We had the capabilities to bring in big names early, and so we took it because.
But it's all well and good just throwing money at the big name wrestlers, like you say, to have a plan for all this. Like people weren't just brought in. Obviously, some people could only come in for 1 or 2 shows.
Yeah.
But certainly, from a fan's perspective, I didn't see it as they're just bringing someone in because they're a name. You had a plan with a lot of the people you brought in, and it wasn't the case.
Mostly.
But it wasn't the case that you just brought them in and you weren't afraid to do stuff that maybe fans wouldn't expect.
I would point to Kurt Angle being sort of like the banner example of that. For people who we get the accusation thrown a lot of us that we are just people who bring in, you know, big stars. We're a money mark promotion. That's the accusation that's been thrown around a lot. But I will point to the fact that we brought in Kurt Angle twice, 3 times actually.
Three matches.
Three matches. First time was against Joe Hendry, and you know he'd reached the peak of his career and he lost, and that sent him into a bit of a spiral. And then you had the pure exhibition match of Cody Rhodes versus Kurt Angle. Pure exhibition match, nothing wrong with that. And then you had Kurt Angle versus Alberto El Patron. At the end of that, Joe Hendry, steaming from his loss, still, you know, had been on a bit of a losing streak, almost had the belt, but never quite, turned using Kurt Angle and that propelled him to be the top heel in the company, which he currently is, and the champion. Which I think is the perfect example of, you know,
it was a brave thing to do, because it was quite split in the meetings about that. You know, the kind of reaction that would get. You know, will we get go home heat and when we don't want to watch this anymore because we're so furious about what you've done to Kurt Angle?
Sure.
Or will we get, you've made a superstar? And we made a superstar, so it did work for us in that regard. You know, Joe's took that ball and ran with it, but it could have backfired. So sometimes you kind of have to be bold and just hope, you know, that it works the way it works in your head and on paper. And yeah, I think I'm not going to call you plumpy. I think Adam's right. I think he is right. We have been guilty sometimes of bringing guys in just for the sake of it. They'll do a match, disappear. I won't say who because it's disrespectful, but sometimes, you know, it'll be like, well, let's bring in this guy, and it's just like, why do we need it? You know, and afterwards we recognise we probably didn't need that. We could have done it with this, and yeah, we get that. We make mistakes, of course we do, but what wrestling company doesn't? So. You know, but I think in many instances we've used the likes of Cody very well. Kurt, as you've said.
Damien Sandow coming in like in our early days when he was riding that kind of momentum of just leaving WWE. We brought him into the stories. You know, it was a case of like he was on 3 episodes of Loaded. It wasn't just a one and you're done thing. Yeah. And he really, you know, he
similar,
had a great
Bully
time.
Ray as well was quite similar. You know, we used him for part of the sword with the swords of Essex, that kind of thing with you, and you know, and Pacitti, sorry, and it was
seeing Bully Ray in a Pacitti club.
Yeah, I didn't want to say Pacitti club. So you know,
so there's, you know,
I don't know if you've made my point or gone against it, but
I think we used him for a story. Not everyone thought that story was to their taste or palatable, but the point is the effort was made to incorporate him into storylines. Right. It wasn't simply now Bully Ray is here and then Bully Ray is gone. It's Bully Ray is here and he's formed allegiances and he's trying to crush Martin Kirby and Kirby finally beat him. That elevates Martin Kirby. You know, we do try to incorporate the imports into something that holds a narrative cohesion.
Now you've partially answered my question I was going to ask next with that conversation there, but one thing I was asked quite a lot on Twitter to ask you guys, even though you're so close to this product, is the favourite wrestler you've had in, whether that could be in terms of just working with them backstage and how they were off camera, or in terms of what they did and the angles they were involved in. What are some of your favourite memories? Because it's been, I mean, you've had the anniversary with Built to Destroy, but it's been over a year now.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
It's felt like it.
So what, favourite import?
Yes.
It's a split down the middle just because they're my sort of icons. Kurt Angle. I just loved watching him wrestle. And just an absolute pleasure to have him. And same with Eric Bischoff, you know, because I do love. I think his GM. He's still the best GM that I think WWE have ever had. And
big opinion.
I think so. And you know, a lot of my heel stuff was based on him. So being able to shake his hand publicly on camera on my birthday, that was a nice memory. What about you?
Yeah. What about you, James?
It's a tough one for me to answer because I work closely with the guys we bring in. I always like it when people from our childhood come in. So it was great having, like, growing up, I was the biggest Bret Hart fan in the world. So being able to work with him in this capacity was really rewarding. And, you know, he did something when he was here that I don't think we ever aired, actually, on one of the shows he was on. And it was a really emotional moment for a lot of the boys in the back. I won't say what it is because I don't want it to come off as like a profiteering thing based on what it was about, but anyone who was there will know what I'm referring to. It was a very classy thing that Bret did for us. But, you know, and same as you as well with, like, Kurt, you know, getting to see him in person and work with him was, and then being so, you know, eager to help us with what we're doing with Joe was
along
fantastic.
Those lines, Cody as well.
Cody as well did a lot for this company. Yeah,
every time, like, he would take to the ring, he would, you know, after his matches, he would deliver like an impassioned speech about how much, and he did, like, a genuine speech of how much it meant to him to be wrestling on the UK in front of these fans. He's always been incredibly good to us on Twitter and just like getting the word out. Like, it's,
and in person, you know,
of course,
gentlemen.
I can't really name any imports that I didn't think gave us like their proper professional best. You know, we may have been wrong in bringing certain imports over just because they didn't fit into storylines and it didn't.
It was a bit random.
Yeah, it was a bit random, but
not a reflection on their work. Just
not at all.
Reflection on our booking, I guess, if anything.
You mentioned the fans there, and they've obviously been an integral part of all this. From, as you mentioned, the humble, as I said, humble beginnings.
Yes.
How's that been to see that? Because I've been lucky enough to obviously be in the crowd and then be working backstage, and I've seen obviously you guys chatting to people during the show, after the show. Sure. What's that like to get that response? Because they've been a very dedicated fan base, and it's grown, and it's been amazing to see, you know, how far they're willing to go. We've had people travel, you know, thousands of miles.
Yeah, well, like we've had shows in Newcastle where someone's travelled over from the States to be there. It's crazy. Like people have really, really. There's a tangible sense of loyalty amongst like our key fan base, especially like the guys who are turning up to the VIP meet and greets before the show, where they get to kind of meet us and stuff. It's genuinely humbling to meet people who are wearing a shirt, a knockoff DX shirt with your first initial, or your initial on it. A really, really weird experience. Part of it is like, you know, when you're in bringing over a fan base from one place to another, that is what you're relying on. Like WCPW would be nothing without the fan base that was started with What Culture first and then moved over. It would be brilliant to say that we've got like a fan base now that primarily likes WCPW rather than the What Culture stuff. But in the beginning, like those guys were the lifeblood of and that's why the first shows were kind of reacted to as hotly as they were, and not just, you know, obviously as well because of the talent of the boys, but it's really, really surreal. And honestly, the gratitude, I don't think we can ever really express how it is. Like the people have paid money to come, and when they didn't have to, when they, you know, because everything we put out on the YouTube channel is for free. When they and you know everything on Loaded was being uploaded for free. Like the fact that these people have delved into their pockets to support us is it's a deeply humbling experience. And again, thank you to everyone who's watched and continue to watch.
And James, one thing I wanted to ask you, on the flip side of that, being, you know, talent relations and being so heavily involved backstage, what are some of your favourite incidents that maybe people won't have seen? It would have gone on backstage, or some stories from back there that you can maybe lift the lid on, so to speak?
There's a little smile.
No comment. One day, I'm sure many stories will be told about many of the things that have gone on, and I think it'd make for a fascinating documentary or read or whatever form it might take. There's a couple of things I think fans would find very interesting. We did that video a couple of months back. You know, some of the secrets. There were some of the sort of publishable secrets. We always enjoy the silly things that we do, or the little quirky things that we do, like Bully wearing the Pachiti Club shirt. You know, that amused all of us, I'm sure, for example. But little things like that are always enjoyable. In terms of secrets, I mean, some decisions that have been made literally minutes before the doors open, and sometimes they've been quite significant. Information has come to light about certain things that we've had to then go, right, well, we need to react to that and stay a step ahead as much as we can.
Yeah, there've been emergent politics between, you know, like different areas of the wrestling industry, which has meant that like certain things had to be changed. Like I think one of the matches on one of the shows, again can't really say who, I think that match had to be changed like 4 times, just because it was unpalatable to certain parties and stuff.
I know which one you mean.
So much guessing in the comments going on.
Good luck. Can we give any clue for that? Can we give any clue at all, do you think?
It was a while ago, is all I'll say.
But possibly this year.
Going forward, looking to the future, obviously we've got the World Cup finals to come, but the future of WCPW, what does that hold in terms of who is some dream people that you'd love to see in there? I know I've seen tweets from people saying Bullet Club, Kenny Omega. For you guys, what does that have?
I think Omega, is a definite, like, just he's the hottest wrestler on the planet right now, hottest independent wrestler, certainly. There are guys that once, you know, like even just a few years ago, if we'd existed, we could have had, which we may never be able to get, like AJ Styles, who I think is generally one of the top 3 best working wrestlers on the planet right now. In terms of like legends, I think we've worked with kind of like, I mean, having a chance to work with Kurt Angle is a personal dream come true. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. Omega, I guess, would be like of the guys we realistically could get. Omega, Okada, Tanahashi, any of those guys, like top level of New Japan. We're all such New Japan fans.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want to give away too much in terms of what we might have planned, but I don't know. I'd like to see us move the opposite direction, if anything, and start focusing even more so on the top British guys, and
of course,
try and scale it back to the point where it was quite early on. So the 3rd, 4th, maybe the 6th, 7th, 8th episodes are loaded when we had like Will Ospreay was there, Damien Sandow was there, but that was about it. And and the rest of it was focused on good storylines that made sense, and building our guys and bringing in different guys from Britain and changing the way we do it, because I think we all recognise that it's not sustainable to bring in 10 guys every time. And I think it's a law of diminishing returns if you do that anyway. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'd like to see. Whether that's what we'll do, I don't know, but that's
Sure.
my opinion.
And looking forward to the World Cup finals taking place, as I said, at the end of August. Jamie Mills on Twitter wanted to know what match are you most looking forward to? Obviously, you did the draw.
Yeah.
What was the one? I think
impeccably.
Well done,
well.
by the way.
Thank you. Didn't louse it up once.
No.
Well done, me.
Put the ball back in the book.
Of the current 16,
yes.
Will Ospreay versus Rey Mysterio. But with a very close second, they're all good. I love the Battle of Hill Valley with Kushida versus Kenny Williams. Bad Bones versus Penta is going to be slugfest. Same with Joe Coffey versus Michael Elgin. I'm going to give you 2, which is Will Ospreay versus Rey Mysterio and Takahashi versus Lucky Kid, which I think is going to be the sleeper hit.
That's mine.
Of the night.
That's mine as well. I think. I mean, we talked about this at length when we did the World Cup podcast, or the what do we call that? Bracket cast.
Bracket cast. Yes.
Great name. I'm very excited for the world to see Lucky Kid, and I think against Takahashi, I think that's going to be something special. I mean, like Adam says, every match is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, as an 8-match card, my God.
Yeah,
I don't think there's been a more stacked card. Not I certainly like apart from like a Wrestle Kingdom or a Wrestle.
Sure, yeah. Bowler might come close.
Yeah, oh God, Bowler's amazing this year.
Dr. Sanchez on Twitter wants to know: Is there a physical cup, and have any entrants considered working regularly with WCPW?
Yes.
Aside from the obvious
yes.
one. Okay.
There you go.
That's good.
all you're getting.
Fidram35 on Twitter as well has asked, has WCPW been considering doing more shows in the United States? Shows in Philly, New York and Chicago might do well financially.
It's certainly under consideration. It's just whether or not, obviously, like there's been a massive change in financial circumstances for WCPW. So like all considerations are ongoing. Obviously, we've wanted to work. Going to Canada was one of the best experiences we had as a company. I'm sure there are dream venues in the States, dream cities as well. Like, to be able to put on a wrestling show in Chicago would be unbelievable. Yeah. But again, all has to be taken into consideration just because of the financial outlay that is required to go.
We probably won't run the Garden anytime soon.
Boston Garden, maybe.
Maybe.
I think that venue's demolished.
Yeah,
now.
I think so too. so we have a chance.
I think that's about it then. So, of course, Friday and Saturday we have the USA qualifiers and the rest of the world qualifiers in Manchester and Newcastle, respectively. And then August 23rd, Milton Keynes, as you said, that card of the first round of the official finals.
Yeah.
August 24th in Manchester is the next round, and the final.
My
Final
birthday.
of the finals.
Yeah.
Is it?
My 30th birthday.
Goodness,
Wow.
what a night it's going to be for you.
Oh dear.
Don't tell the boys.
Nope.
And the finals, of course, Newcastle upon Tyne, August 26th, when we will crown our World Cup winner. You can get tickets now at ProWrestlingWorldCup.com. The finals, of course, will be live on YouTube as well.
Goodness.
It's been a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you very much. Plumpy,
Thank you for having me.
WCPW General Manager, James Dixon, Executive Vice President of Talent Relations.
That's what it is now, right?
It is going to be an amazing Pro Wrestling World Cup finals to look forward to. I can't wait, and we've got lots to look forward to. Obviously,
what's your favourite match that you're looking forward to? You ask all the questions, but you don't answer it.
Well, I mentioned Ospreay and Mysterio yesterday in the bracket cast, but I would like to see the murder that is Joe Coffey versus Michael Elgin.
Oh,
well.
it's going to be great.
It's a bit of both for me. But yeah, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Can't wait to see it. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.